Hello,
Okay.
everybody. Welcome back to Fly the Coop. I am so excited to introduce you to my guest today, Bill O'Connell, also known as Billy, William, and all kinds of other names we're going to talk about. Welcome, welcome, Bill. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really
Thank you for
appreciate it.
having me. Yeah.
So, your background is CB, that's Coldwell Banker.
Yes.
And you're in the middle of a rebranding right now. So let's share with everybody a little bit about that because obviously we'll be cross promoting work with Bill as we're dealing with a lot of relocation back and forth out of Arizona. One of the reasons for this share today was to give some people, the audience, a little bit more intel, not only about the community and how awesome it is, but to introduce them all to you because you're a great resource. I mean, you know this community really, really well. So your new branding, Southwest Property Pros, I think that's super cool. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So Southwest Property Pros, I thought of that name a while back and I was playing around with it, but I wasn't really devoting all of my efforts into really uh, uh, doing the social media thing. So now my plans are to become a real junkie,
Mhm.
to be the TikTok guy and and you know, I'm sorry,
So
I'm losing
it's
my
the
thought
it's
process.
the
Some of the other
Instagram and
Instagram.
TikTok
Thank you,
and
thank you, thank you.
Facebook and
Yeah, yeah,
LinkedIn and
yeah.
Google and oh my God,
Right.
it goes on and on and on. It is a
Yeah,
full-time job. I have a full-time person handling all that. It's a lot.
yeah, yeah,
It's a lot.
yeah,
So
yeah.
this is kind of
Well,
cool. Your office has its own studio. I think that's awesome.
I'm sitting at our podcast desk at the very moment,
Yeah,
and yeah, so I'm not
that's
recording
great.
your side at the yeah, I'm not recording this at the moment, so I'll get a copy from you when that happens or tap
Yeah.
into it. But in any event, yeah, so Southwest Property Pros, it's not I'm because I'm in the middle of that rebranding. The best way to get a hold of me at this moment, would you like me to give my phone number
Well, we're
or
totally gonna include all of it. We're gonna
okay,
include it all in the podcast so we can and then we've got a resource list. So we're gonna be working with Bill because there's a synergy there already because a lot of people don't know, just like Bill being brokering both in California and Arizona, Kevin, your friend who works with me, Kevin is a broker in 4 states to include Arizona, Florida,
yes.
Colorado, and Minnesota, which is super dynamic. And all of those places have great ebb and flow. Like we are doing a lot of work in all those places. So it makes sense because there is such a real play in the marketplace right now in real estate as a whole, right? And the
Right.
investment component is a real thing. It's a real thing. And there's absolutely an interest by many, many people to invest their dollars that they have, the resources they have, into real estate holdings. And there's no better place to do that than, Phoenix specifically in my mind because of the growth that you're talking about right now. So navigating that, give me the ebb and flow of what's your workflow like? You meet somebody from another state that wants to buy a piece of real estate in the Phoenix area. What's your workflow look like to help them do that?
Well, first and foremost, I want to know what their ultimate goals are
Mhm.
financially with this piece of property. In some cases, obviously, if you're an end user, that's not going to be part of the conversation. It's
Right.
going to be more about how, what features and the HOA and amenities that might be available through the HOA. But
Mhm.
overall, if you're an investor, I'm going to first and foremost sit down and find out where you're at in life. I
Right.
don't know what your goals are. You may want to buy one home, you may want to buy 10 homes. We get a lot of people using 1031 exchanges.
Yep. We can talk about
We
that.
have 401ks that people don't know how to navigate using your 401k.
Mhm.
The thing about 401k, though, you cannot use that home for your personal use. It's
Mhm.
got to be strictly for investment and
Right.
rental.
Right.
But again, I've got plenty of contacts to manage the property. I do not do property management myself, but
Mhm.
I can certainly help you get through that process.
Mhm.
I think big part of why I wanted to really talk to you, Cari Ann, is to kind of talk about all these misnomers or these blanket statements that are on social media
I agree.
about how the whole market's going to crash, the whole
I
world is
know.
coming down to an end, right?
No.
And I'm sorry, but if I had great news for you, that stick, hang on, we're going to have a crash. I don't have a crystal ball, nobody does, but at the same time, statistically and through seeing, I've been through 3 cycles since I've been in real estate.
Me too.
Big cycles, right?
Mhm.
And these cycles of up and down. But when you look at the overall time frame, when I got here in '89, homes, the home in Scottsdale, $70,000,
Right. I
and now
know.
that same home is,
I
$700,000.
know. Like a lot
So
of parts of the country, right? That's
right,
true
right,
for a lot of parts of the country,
yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Mhm.
unfortunately, for now anyway, the interest rates are making that a little bit tougher. But if you look at the overall performance, it's been a stair step. It's
Yeah.
not been it's not been flat. It hasn't gone way up and way down. Yes, it's gone up and down, but
Right.
as it goes up and down, it just keeps on going higher and higher. So
Mm.
if you're thinking about waiting, you know, I'll just say this: it has to be right for you. The time has to be right for you. I'm
Mhm.
not going to say this is the best time to buy or,
Right.
this is the best time to sell because I don't know your situation. I
Right.
need to talk to you and find out what your goals are. So
Right.
once
Right.
I know that you're going to be an investor, we're going to analyze homes. I'm going to show you the math because math doesn't lie.
You
So
sound like Chad,
uh
my lender in my office. I should put you two together. You guys
yeah.
with meth with Chad. Numbers
Yeah.
don't lie. They're
Yeah,
real.
right.
Yeah,
It's
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 true.
it's where I and really through Kevin, who is now working with you,
Mhm.
we became such great friends because we had a lot of similar thought processes.
Right.
But when it comes down to the investing side, you really uh have to go with what the market is doing. So if you want let's talk cap return. Well,
Mm.
some people don't want to talk about cap rates
Yeah.
because they don't know that math. I'll show you
Yeah.
the math. If you want
Right.
to just talk cash on cash return, I'll show you the math. But
Right.
ultimately, if you're going to have an investment property, the ultimate goal is to at least have it cover the full payment unless
Right.
you've got the income to cover that difference.
Right.
But right now, the rents here in Arizona are holding pretty strong. They are
Yeah.
coming down a little bit, but not enough where you can't buy that 400, $500,000 home and support it with rents that might be, 16, 1700, $1,800 a month.
Right.
So the math is still working.
Yeah, the math is
And
still working for most
yeah,
parts of the country because there
yeah.
is a rental need for sure. There is a rental need
And
out
there's going to
there.
be forever.
You want it well, right now, I think more than ever. You wanna know why?
Yes,
Because
tell me.
40% of our selling population right now are baby boomers or in this section of their life where they've been in the same home for 20 plus years and they don't know what they want to do. And they
Right,
don't want
right,
to be committed to a set of four walls anymore. Kevin and
right,
I talk about this all of the time. And
right.
there's a rental need because they want to have the freedom to be able to explore options without committing. And there's nothing wrong with that. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that.
It
Then,
used to be a bad thought to be a renter, right? But
yeah,
not anymore.
not
Not anymore.
anymore.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
there's another faction of our country, which is pretty big. It's the millennials. And they're starting a little later in life because they don't want to commit necessarily to four walls. They're experiential in their goals. They're more about the life experience piece of life, and they're spending more years doing that versus taking care of a home and starting a family earlier on. That's not the trend right now. So when people say the imbalance, like we have a lack of supply right now because there's a population increase that's real, paired with a need for rental housing, which is why we're seeing so much growth. We're seeing that in our market as well because there's a need for it. And I don't really see, for about a decade, I don't really see that balance changing. We had a slowdown because of supply, materials, and labor. Our construction component of building housing to fill the need went way down, and they're doing more custom work now. And the builders that are doing larger communities are more selective because they are working in real time right now with nailing out those numbers. So we are seeing a once in a lifetime, in my mind, in our lifetime, we're seeing a very dynamic shift that the newsworthy statements that are being made, we're hitting a recession, the market's going to crash. Not for us, not for
Yeah.
housing. It's
Yeah.
not. They don't really
Yeah.
know what they're talking about. They
I
don't
know.
understand the real fundamental piece of life that's going on. Everybody needs a roof over their head. That's the truth. Whether they own it or they're renting it is a separate conversation. And one of the reasons I think both our state and Arizona are so on fire right now is for those three reasons. That's what I think. What do you think?
I all of that, and I think in addition to that, from what I'm reading, because I really do try to keep an open mind about what is really happening, not only here
Yeah,
but across the country. I
me
just
too.
got back from a trip in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I don't know if
Mhm.
you've ever
I
been
love it.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I have a friend that has bought a condo there, and we got onto a water taxi, and the water taxi people are telling you about the $7 million home that's being
Mhm.
completely knocked down with a
Mhm.
$20 million home being added to it, while
Crazy.
their $50 million yacht is right outside their back door.
Mhm.
So and everything there is basic. There is no imagination to a skyscraper there. It
Mhm.
is just flat out a box. People don't, they are going to live in a box. I mean, we all live in boxes, but
Mhm.
some live in nicer boxes than others.
Right.
But there is no imagination to the architecture. It is basic needs, but they are building and building and building because more and more people. Urbanization is going to continue. People want to not drive around. They just
Mhm.
want to go home. They want to go to work. Maybe they'll work in an office, maybe not.
Right.
But nonetheless, when they want to go outside, grab some groceries, or go to a restaurant and not go through, I guess, the process in cities like Phoenix, right? Where
Right.
we live in a very stretched out area. So if you want to go from one side of the town to the other, you got to have a car. But that's only because that's been the nature of, the way it's been here. Now it's
Mhm.
changing. Now we're looking at, mass transit. Yeah, you don't need a car. Yeah, I mean,
Right. It's
you
true.
know, yeah, so it's getting less and less. So for whatever money you're saving on your car, you'll probably be putting it into your rent or your condo payment or whatever. But turn the key and go. That's what my friend, he's got three condos, one
Mhm.
here, one in Fort Lauderdale, and one in Hell's Kitchen in Manhattan.
Oh,
And
cool.
and so
Awesome.
he's that client. He's that type of client
Yeah.
that, all he wants to do is just go home. He has nothing in his refrigerator. Because he goes to restaurants all the time.
Yeah.
So
That's
so
that's cool though, right? I mean, that
right,
how
it is.
it's a
It is.
lifestyle for
Yeah,
sure,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's a fun
yeah,
one for
yeah,
sure. And I
yeah,
do think that there's a huge populace of people that are kind of craving that because they've been the family homeowner for so long. I go back to that baby, like that 60 plus market share out there that's so huge. Um,
yeah.
they're interested in that. Like that's an interesting thing for them. And
That's the thing,
therefore there's
right?
a need for it, right? There's a need
Right,
to serve that client, and
right.
that need is not going away in the near future. And they happen to, oh, by the way, be more liquid than any um, populace of people we've seen in a lifetime. Like they're probably the wealthiest populace. We're probably wealthier as a world right now than we'll ever see again, given I
Hmm.
think the number is 71 or 72 trillion dollars of the global wealth bill is held up by this 40%, which is a big number, right? Of the
Right.
populace, which is
Right.
at this point in life. So I
Right.
don't think anyone really talks about that. Like there's a power play that's got nothing to do with the interest rate. The interest rate's a non-play there, A.
Yeah.
And
Has
then
nothing to
B,
do with it.
hello, this last 5 years, which 80% of the market, right? The agents out there have been in the business. I'm not going to put an age on it, but 80% of the market's been in the business for under 5 years. So they have no idea. You and I have been licensed me 98 and you said around 2000. We
Yeah.
have seen every kind of market possible. So we're
Right.
able to
Right.
articulate what normal really is. Kevin actually ran numbers for our midweek market update we do a few weeks ago, and the average since they've been doing averages, we're actually below as a rate. We're below the average right now. If you look at the longevity of rates, we are
Right.
lower than the average right now. It's just how you consume that information and what your expectation is, right? And what you're used to. And
Yeah.
it's a big populace of people that require a loan that are fixed on a percentage that really we can work with, and we can navigate what is the cost to do business. And then let's find the right space to allow you to do that so you can make that decision. So as an investment community, which I totally put Arizona and Phoenix specifically into, where are you finding your percentile in terms of new buyers and we'll say empty nester slash baby boomer? What does that number look like in Scottsdale slash Phoenix right now for you?
Well, uh, this is just one example, but I had some friends that actually were referred to me from my hometown way back when I was living in Wisconsin,
Oh, wow.
and from a very only 10,000 people in the town, so very
Yeah, I
small
love
town.
that.
So anyway, a friend of mine, mutual friend, told me that they were moving out of Marinette, Wisconsin, and they were coming here.
Okay.
And so they just recently retired, and this is when the market was really, really hot prior to July of last year. So we were on fire for for a good year and a half of crazy appreciation and everything. So
Okay.
anyway, I found them a home. Um, they settled in. They've revamped the home with lots of money. They because they're going to be long term, they didn't care about what the market was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly today I could give them a better deal, but I don't know if I would get them in that same location,
Right.
So there's a lot of variables that go along with, anybody. It's really just the timing factor for that person.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that for the for the retirement person, there's product out there if you want to go, mid-rise, like my friend does with condos.
Right.
Certainly that availability is here. That 2 bedroom 2 bath really works well to have some guests come,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Right.
you know you're going to get rid of a lot of your stuff, which a lot of people have that dilemma,
Mm-hmm.
right? My
Stuff
mom at
management. We deal with
my
that.
mom, my mom at 90, we keep on telling her, Mom, now's the time to, get rid of stuff because
Mhm.
none of us, we all have our own stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't need, right? And how do you
Yep.
disseminate all that? But it's
Mhm.
it's really that. So I had that whole conversation with them. They got rid of things at their house. We found them a house here, but then they had to mentally start unloading, big couches or things that they couldn't bring with them.
Mhm.
So that is part of this. I mean, I try to, play the long game and think about actually having the house, but prior to that, let's make sure that, you're ready
Yeah.
to move here
Exactly.
without having a bunch of stuff going to storage for 5 years and burn a bunch of money, right? So those
Exactly.
are those are some of the considerations, the pets, the family when they come and visit, some of these 55 plus communities, if you've got grandkids, we got to talk about this stuff because your grandkids may not be able to stay with you.
Right.
You know, people go just, oh, I love, and then they don't, and then when they get down to that point, uh-oh,
Yeah.
well, guess who's going to get the phone call? Of course, it's going to be me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say, well, why didn't you tell me about this? Right. So
Yeah.
I try to put myself in your shoes from the very moment I meet you to when you're done. Now, if it comes to investment homes, um, whole different conversation,
Hmm.
but again, it's the math is where we would start. And then and really a lot of this, it's still picking out a good location. I
Oh,
think
I
that
totally agree.
being being by these big project companies that are growing and growing and growing, you're always going to have renters because
Right.
you're always going to have people either coming in town for a short period of time, or
Hmm.
they could be coming here for 3 4 years, but they're always going to be renters because they're working for a company that kind of churns them and pushes them around the world,
Right.
when it comes to high tech.
I
So
totally
there's a there's
agree.
a there's a lot of stuff to work, to think about.
So I am really fascinated by the growth model. I think it's going to be a really interesting thing to watch. The tech component seems to be so driven to that area that I think that's going to really open up an opportunity for more jobs in the area. It's going to expand on the audience of people that are attracted to that part of the country. And it's certainly going to keep you very busy, Bill. I think that you've picked a perfect time to really blow it out of the water. I mean, why not, right? I think
Right,
Southwest
right.
Property Pros is going to be brilliant, and you've got a lot to share. Like your knowledge level is severely, like really, not severely, it's significant. Like it's completely all encompassing when it comes to advising people. So what a great resource for us. I'm super excited
Yeah.
about that. Really
I
excited about
find
that.
I find so much of this fascinating. I've always been in high tech. I went to school for aviation electronics, and I've always been just really focused on. I'm always buying the new gadget.
Hmm.
It's just so that I can try it out and see how it works. I mean, I've got cameras now that I want to start using to. These are very small handheld cameras, but I want to start doing more podcast shows where I take you to, let's say, downtown Chandler and do a
Hmm.
walkthrough on their little town area,
That's a
right?
great idea. I love it.
Just to kind of show you around, right?
Mhm.
I'll take you to Old Town Scottsdale, but there's plenty of video on that, but there isn't video on maybe going out to Buckeye and just
Right.
seeing what's going on. Bill Gates, if he follows through with, even if he doesn't follow through, let's just talk about, what he's done now is he's locked up, I forget how many, 24,000 acres. Okay.
Yeah, I think I
He
heard about this.
added another 2,800 to that in 2019 and 2020. Okay. So prior to COVID.
Mhm.
And now he's the title is switched over to one of his other holding companies. Even even if they were to do a small scaled model of this, I think it's going to be really the wave because all your infrastructure is going to be interconnected with the most high tech, uh, you know, uh, pathways for electronics to talk to each other. I mean,
Right,
there isn't going to be anybody that isn't going to be connected right within that community. And if they grow it to 200,000 people, which
right.
that's the eventual plans,
Mhm.
I mean, my gosh, that's going to be it's going to be like Dubai, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
where it's going to be on its own and be super cool for a lot of people to be, part of.
It is interesting. Do you feel like this is kind of like a test model, if you will, on what I would call micro communities?
Yes, smart cities, and they're
Yeah.
also looking at the retro side. I mean, the expense of
Mhm.
doing anything and retrofitting a city like Phoenix is very expensive, but yet I know every time that they're digging a trench, they're putting more stuff in there that they're not using yet.
Mhm.
So they're thinking ahead, and I think cities are getting smarter and smarter to do that. But yet, when you can start from a clean palette
Right.
and just make it the way that you want to make it and how it's going
Right.
to communicate to all the workers and what the ultimate goal of that is
Mhm.
really where it's going to be self-sufficient. They want to do this with powering a lot of it with solar panels.
Yeah.
So
Well, they
they're trying
can
to
there
get off this
too.
grid,
Yeah.
this necessary part of the grid. Now, water, as we talked about earlier, they're going to have to, of course, take that in consideration. And how do they figure that out?
Hmm.
Well, I think Bill's got a few dollars to, figure
Hmm.
that study out, and maybe it's something crazy like desalinization from because I mean even San Diego right now they've got I think 7% of their fresh water is being desaled
Yeah,
through
that's a whole rabbit hole right there that,
yeah, yeah,
the problem with that long term in mass is that salt has to go
salt.
somewhere.
It has to go
And
back out to the to the
well,
middle of the ocean.
you can't
Yeah,
do
yeah,
that because as
yeah,
soon as you change that water component, even the slightest, you're killing everything in the ocean.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So reentry of salt, whether it be land or our waters, isn't really an option because either
Right.
one is damaged by it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah,
That's a whole thing. I could go on for an
yeah.
hour just about
But
that.
technology again could
Technology,
solve that problem, maybe. Who knows?
yeah,
You
salt
know,
has to go somewhere. And
yeah,
salt, I mean, salt's a beautiful thing, and we love our salt, and we need it to survive. In the same breath, it can be highly damaging if it's not managed properly because it
right,
can destroy the two most important things minus like the trifecta, oxygen, land, and water. It can be highly damaging to all three if not managed properly. Like you can't like reposition it. It's got its purpose in each place, and adding more
right.
to any of those things isn't an option.
Yeah, well, I know
So,
living up in Northern California, I lived up there for 7 years. And when those fires happen that are up in, well, anywhere in California, I
mhm,
always wondered why are they not just grabbing water out of the ocean and dumping it onto the fire? Well, they
that's
can't
why
because that salt will completely
kill
leave
everything.
yeah, it'll kill everything. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's definitely one of those issues.
You
But
have so
yeah,
much of it, and it's so beautiful, but there's
I
limited
know
use for it. That's
it
the
is.
truth,
Yeah, for sure,
you
for sure.
know? Well,
Yeah.
my gosh, Bill, you and I are going to have to do this a few times this year. There's so much to talk about, and we just blew through a whole hour. Can you believe that,
Oh
folks?
wow, are you serious?
Yeah,
Wow.
Bill, you're an
Okay.
amazing story. It's just super fun to have some time to visit with you and so knowledgeable, like mind-blowing amounts of knowledge. So, we're going to make sure everybody that you've got access to Bill O'Connell. He lives in Old Scottsdale in Arizona. He's a major player in Phoenix. He's a wonderful resource if you've been considering buying anything at all, whether you're an investor or a homeowner and you're looking to buy a piece of real estate or more in Phoenix, Arizona, or California for that matter. Bill is your guy. Bill, it's been an honor, truly lovely to talk to you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time, Carrie
Yep.
Ann. It was awesome to talk to you.
Thank you.
And hey, and by the way, since we're doing this just to wrap this up, if there's anyone, of course, that might know me or recognize me and you need some help up in Minnesota,
Yeah.
certainly as this goes on, I'd recommend Cari Ann and her team. She's got a huge team up there, and the gentleman that we talk about so daringly is Kevin Coulter. He's super nice guy.
Great guy. Yeah.
Great guy, and he's from Minnesota. So as I go and see my mom up in Rochester, Minnesota, I always make it a point to see Kevin. So
That's
when I'm up there next time, Cari Ann, I'll come and see you as well.
Yep. We'll get you out for lunch for sure, and it'll be a pleasure. So, everybody, Bill O'Connell, Phoenix, Arizona, and Northern California, both, thank you so much. And we'll see you next week.